Welcome back to Midlife Unfiltered. I'm Donna, and this is my co-host, Nick.
Thank you so much for being here today. We are joined by Kameran. She is a Gottman certified marriage coach and host of the Married Connected podcast and the founder of Recognizing Potential coaching program. Thank you so much, Kameran, for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm so excited for this conversation.
Thank you. Thank
We
you.
are also, I am. I love being enlightened by different conversations.
Yeah, me
Yes.
too.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about you and how you got into becoming a marriage coach? Because that's always a little spicy and fun. I love hearing these types of how people got into this.
Yeah. So, you know how they say that you're going to take your message or your mess and make it your message? That's my
Yeah.
story.
Okay.
Definitely did that. So, married my high school sweetheart. And 6 years into that, well, 5 years being married, I was like,
Mhm.
you know what? This is actually not going to work out. So I'm out, filed for divorce, did not want anyone to ever go through that again in
Mhm.
their life because that was terrible. And then I married my second husband and we ended up getting a divorce and
Okay.
not wanted by me, but we ended up going through all the things, infidelity, infertility, all the things. And we ended up reconciling about a year
Mhm.
after getting a divorce. So, yeah.
I
So
love that.
now I teach couples how to actually have a healthy relationship so
Mhm.
that they don't have to go through the excruciating pain financially, mentally, physically, emotionally, all the things
Yeah.
from what divorce is. So, yeah, we have
I
Wow.
was,
two
Would
I
you
was
kids.
reading some of your reviews, and it very interesting.
Thanks. Thanks.
would you say that communication is the number one problem in marriages? Like one person doesn't want to communicate, the other one does, and they shut down, and that's how the strife happens.
You know, it's interesting that you ask that because I think if you're looking at it from the inside perspective of your
Mhm.
relationship, that's what most people would think. They're thinking
Yeah.
we don't communicate well. But it's
Yeah.
actually not a communication problem. We've been communicating our entire lives. We know how to communicate. It's actually an emotional safety problem. So what happens is that we like think about like you and Nick, Donna. Are you guys I
Mhm.
mean, like would you guys consider yourselves best friends? Is that how you became co-hosts?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So whenever you guys are talking to each other, there's like a certain level of respect there. And there's a certain level of consideration of like,
Mhm.
oh, I know Donna doesn't like this, or I know Nick's allergic to peanuts, or I know like things like that. So you know these things, you take those things into consideration. The problem when we get into marriages is we stop having that consideration for our partner. It's just like, well, they're
Mm.
always going to be there, so whatever. And sometimes that's a good thing. And sometimes it's like, well, I've got 4 kids instead of 3 and things like
Yeah.
that. So we
Yeah.
start feeling that. And then when our partner comes to talk to us and they're like, hey, I had a really great day, you're like, great. And you also didn't take out the trash on your way out the door this morning. Things like that. So they like,
Yes.
and it's on both sides. It's just
Yep.
as much women as it is men,
Mhm.
but we feel like, oh, guess I'll go tell my best friend this
Mhm.
instead of my partner being my best friend because I feel dismissed. I feel minimized. I feel, completely like you don't even want to hear what I say, or you're always trying to fix it, or something like something's always wrong there. So we
Yeah.
stop talking. It's not that we don't know how, it's that we
Mhm.
stop because we don't feel like our partner cares or like our partner is a safe place for us to, lay out all of our problems without having them fixed or even feel like they are interested in what we have to say.
It's so interesting that you say that because I've heard so many of my friends have said that where my old neighbors, they separated and they were literally pointing fingers at each other. And I'm like, I don't know what you want me to do. I was like, you have to sit down and talk to them. I was like, I can't, literally was, he's not helping me. He comes home and plays video games. I'm at home all day with the twins and the older two. And I was just like, I don't know what you want me to do. I don't understand. Like you said, every marriage and everybody has their own issues. And I would say, because my husband's not from the United States, ours is a cultural issue. That's what we have. Like he's basing his off of what he grew up in Africa, and I'm basing mine off of here. But yeah, like you say, communication is key.
It is, and you know what, Nick? It's interesting that you say that. My husband's not from the United States either. He's from the
Okay.
Middle East.
Okay.
And it's so but here's the thing, whether your spouse is from the same city you're in or from a
Hmm.
completely different continent, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
Everybody is going off of the exact same experiences, exposures, and education. One of the things that I tell every client that comes to me is like think of it that we're all born with a suitcase, and
Yeah.
you take that suitcase everywhere you go, and every
Mhm.
experience you have, every relationship that you have, every, lesson that you've learned, mistake that you've made, everything gets shoved into that suitcase. And then you get married and you both dump your suitcases into the middle of the living room floor. And that's what
True.
marriage is. You're sorting through those things, and it's like,
Mhm.
what do we shove in a closet because we don't want anybody to see that? Or what do we throw
Yep.
away because
Yep.
we are not doing that? Or what do we put out on a shelf for everyone to see as soon as they walk in the door?
Mhm.
So we're trying to do that. But then when we break up, we get divorced, we just hastily grab things out of the pile, hoping that it's ours. But we're also taking their stuff too, and
Mhm.
things that they've, their experiences and their education and their exposures, and we're taking that with us to the next relationship. And so we think the grass is always greener on the other side,
Not
but
always.
I once heard that the grass is only greener because you're not over there jacking it up.
Yep.
Ooh,
And
yeah.
True.
that's true.
Yeah. No, it's very true, and
What
I
do you
always
think?
see.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Donna, go for it.
I was going to say, like, what do you think? How can I ask? What part of it is more of just basically a listening thing? So you want to have this relationship with your spouse because, obviously you want to have such a great, strong relationship. You want to, pass it on to your kids. But what part of it is listening and what part of it is just surviving? You know what I mean?
Think,
Like some people,
yeah,
I don't think we truly listen when
we
people
don't.
need things.
We don't. And the thing of it is, that's where attachments come in too, where I work with a lot of couples that say, I'm listening to you. No, 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 you're not listening. You're hearing,
Yes.
you're
Mhm.
not listening.
Yeah.
And the reason that that is that, again, going back to those experiences, exposures, and education, every childhood trauma that we have, and it could be little things. Like I worked with a guy, not too long ago, where he said that one of his biggest traumas was that his parents left him with a grandparent and went on a vacation when he was 18 months old. And he, like, because he was so little, he was like, I didn't think my parents were coming back. Like, I freaked out. It was the only, the first time that I'd ever been left alone with
Mhm.
somebody other than my parents. I was 18 months old, but he still remembered that. And it's like things like that that we don't even think would even be traumatic. And
Mhm.
because we're thinking trauma like really, really bad things, right? Where
Right,
it could
yeah.
be little t trauma that completely shapes who you are. The problem with that is that then we're creating a self belief, we're creating a filter, and then those emotions and feelings and all of that come from that. So what ends up happening is we have this self belief of, I'm always going to be left. I'm always going to be abandoned. I'm always going to be rejected. I'm always, like life is hard, or I can't ever make enough money, or I'm not good enough, or I'm stupid. All of those are really common. And those come from trauma induced self beliefs. But the way, going back to your question, is those affect how we listen. Because when we are listening, we have to actually listen from our partner's point of view, or from the speaker's point of view. It's like a two-way street. There's a message being sent, but there's also a message being received. And that message being received is through our filters, but the message being sent is through theirs. So it comes down to, again, that emotional safety. Do you know your partner well enough to know what their triggers are, what their filters are, how they, when they say, X, Y, and Z, Nick, you'll appreciate this. If your husband doesn't talk, like English is his second language. There
Mhm.
was one time where my husband and I got into this awful argument, and he said, God, you're so boring. And I was like, excuse me, sir, I am a lot of things, but boring is not one of them. What he meant was, I'm so stubborn. I will own that all day, every day, and twice on Sunday. Like, but you see what I'm saying? So even like respect, the word respect is completely different for one person than it is for somebody else, or love, or consideration, or support. Like all of these words are completely different. And if you don't know your partner well enough, you don't know what these words mean to them. And so what they mean to you, you're listening from the point of view of, well, this is what it means to me, so it has to mean the same to you. And that's not the case.
Well, those
So,
words, some of those words that you said are so abstract.
yeah.
So I can say I love you
Yeah.
because, oh, there goes Nick. I can say I love you because, you're my friend,
Right.
or I can say I love you because you're my partner, or I
Right.
can say I love ice cream. They all have a different aspect, a different meaning. They're all not the same.
Right. They
So when
are.
you use those words that are interchangeable, I don't think that it becomes difficult.
Well, and even from partner to partner, you can say, I love you. And they can say, I love you. But love to them growing up, like maybe their parents weren't emotionally attuned. So love to them means I take care of you, I feed you, I clothe you, I give you the
Mhm.
basic necessities, but I'm not emotionally engaged,
Right.
right? Whereas to me, maybe I grew up where love meant you show the person that you love them. You're emotionally attuned. If they're
Mhm.
hurting, you stop and say, "Oh my gosh, honey, that looked like it hurt. How can we make you feel better?" Versus rub some dirt on it, you're fine, keep going. You know what I mean? It's completely different. So even in that aspect, you learn what love is from what you see. And if we've had two completely different experiences, we're going to have two completely different definitions of those words.
And do you think it is how we have to learn how the other person likes to be spoken to or treated? Or do you think we just kind of give out because like when you say rub dirt in it, just rub
Yeah.
dirt in it and keep going. And then maybe you're talking to someone that just can't do that, but that's what we want you to do.
Yeah. So what you're asking here is two parts. So the first part is that it's not so much learning how to love them as it is learning how to not be selfish, how to be others
Yeah.
focused versus self focused, which is kind of what society is pushing at this point. So being others focused and just learning, even in the dating stage, I think that we're so wrapped up in chemistry and in experiences and fun, we don't have these conversations to really get to know our partner. So we're
Yeah.
not really equipped to be a good partner when we get married. And then we get
Right.
married and we're like, wait, hold on now. Like, I didn't know this. I didn't realize this. And so then we start judging them and they're judging us too. So there's a lot of hypocrisy there. But then the second part that you're saying is capacity. I know that, and everybody's capacities for different things is different. So my capacity for, especially, being midlife and perimenopause and
Yep.
all of that, my capacity for like crumbs on the floor, if I'm constantly having to wipe the bottoms of my feet off on my leg because I'm stepping on things, drives me insane. If I have the TV
Fair.
going and the 5-year-old's talking and I can hear the 16-year-old in his room playing video games and sounding like he has Tourette's because he's yelling out random crap at, the decibel of a rock concert. And then my husband comes in and he's like flipping papers or something. I am going to lose my damn mind.
Yep.
Yeah.
So like
Oversensory.
my husband on the other hand is like, why are you so mad? Why are you irritated? Because if I hear one more sound that I have to process, I can't do it. I don't have the capacity for that.
Yeah.
Whereas for him, if I'm telling a story that's over 3 minutes long, he doesn't have the capacity for that. It's too wordy. It's too wordy. I
Yes.
can't do it.
That
You
is
see what
my
I'm saying?
husband.
Like, yeah, your
That
husband's
is my
probably a
husband.
dismissive
He's like,
avoidant.
get straight to the point. I'm like,
Yes.
and then I'm like, no, I have to tell it to you this way. And
Yeah.
he's like, no, just
Yeah.
get straight to the point. And I'm like, so then the other day I was like, went in, told him 3 words. He's like, I don't get it. And I'm like, well, you always tell me to go straight to the point. And he's like,
Mhm. Yeah.
I'm like, you told me go straight to the point. Don't go down here. You don't like being in the weeds. But
Yeah.
then when I do what you want, you get mad. So you need to help me out here because
Yeah.
I don't know what
What's
you
the
want.
happy medium here? Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah. I got you
So
on
what
that
are
one.
some of the things that you try to teach your clients, or maybe not so much teach, but try to help them, weave it through their relationships to
Yeah.
get the positive?
So this is a little bit different. This is how I'm different than a therapist or a counselor is
Mhm.
that in therapy and counseling, you only get one session per week. When you sit down, you're talking for maybe 30 minutes and it's usually rehashing the argument that you had 3 nights ago or something like that. You're
Right.
not really moving forward. So for me, I give support in between sessions so that we can
Okay.
rehash all the things, or like say you're having an argument on Monday night but you don't have a session with me until Thursday. On Monday night, you can get on the app and send me a voice message and be like, all right, here's what's happening. We're in the weeds.
Mm.
And I can coach you in
Yeah.
real time. So that then on Thursday, I'm actually giving you tools that we work through and move forward. So going back to the capacity, if you have capacity like this, I'm going to help you expand that. For your partner, I'm going to help them understand capacity and what that is. and
Okay.
then go from there. Last week I was working, and this happens so frequently, but a lot of dismissive avoidance. So a lot of it's going to go to your attachment style, and I help you create secure attachment styles versus insecure attachment styles. Anxious, preoccupied, dismissive avoidant, fearful avoidant. You hear about that all over Instagram or, social media. So I'm going to help you create a secure attachment. But one of the things that if they're a dismissive avoidant or fearful avoidant that leans heavily dismissive, what happens is they don't have empathy. The
Mhm.
empathy is lacking. If they're pilots, like my husband, if they're military or first responders, those are the top 3 of all industries that don't have empathy. And
I
it's
can understand
great
that.
for their job because,
Yeah.
like, if an engine blows in the plane, I don't want my husband sitting there being like, oh my God, the passengers in 32A must be so scared right now. Stop giving a crap about 32A and go through the checklist, bro. Like, I
Yeah.
need you to
Yeah.
die
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
So, like, that kind of thing. So it makes them great at their job. And it makes them really crappy when they come home and try to be a spouse because there's no switch that's flipped. So I
Right.
help them develop that switch and
Okay.
then, be able to flip it when they leave the cockpit or, the shooting range or whatever, or the crime scene. So that's some of the things that I help with. Other things are emotional regulation, emotional safety,
Mhm.
connection, emotional intimacy that, again, a lot of people are afraid of. And then going from just having sex to having a really spicy, physically intimate life
Mhm.
versus just, well, I mean, we've been married for 20 years. So yeah, this is normal. Well, no, it's really
Yeah.
not. Like, you can have that passionate spice that you had when you were 25. It's just a matter of creating it.
Yeah. And finding a way, keeping it.
You were talking a few minutes ago about how you help people in between their sessions. A few years ago, my nephew, so you're going to understand this, because my husband is from Nigeria. So my nephew, and if you know anything about Nigeria, they have different tribes and they don't like to mesh their tribes. So my
Mm-hmm.
nephew was from one tribe and his girlfriend was from another tribe. She was a
Ooh.
Christian and he was Muslim. That you already know there was a hot mess. And
Uh-huh.
then
That's my life.
his mom didn't like it. Then they had a child, which made it even
Mm-hmm.
worse. And it was literally Auntie Nick, Auntie. And I'm like, "Oh, my word." She would call me crying. He would be like, I don't know what to do. And he didn't understand this phrase, but you did. And I said, you are still attached to the boob. And he's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And I said, you are listening to your mother. I said, you are a 26-year-old man with a fiance and a baby. I said, you need to make the decision right now. I said, do you want to wake up tomorrow, no, or in 5 years from now, knowing your son is going to wake up in the morning and say hello to another man who sends him off to school and puts him to bed every single night? Or do you want to be there and part of your kids' life? He's like, I want to be part of my kids' life. I said to him, I was like, your mom, I said, I love her to pieces. I go, she's not going to be around maybe in 30 years. She's going to be dead because of her age. I said, your kids and your girlfriend are still going to be around. I said, you need to choose. I said, you can respectfully tell your mom, hey, listen, I love you. Thank you for everything. I know you're not happy with me being involved in this relationship, but this is my family.
Yeah.
And it took a couple of months for it to click in his brain and to get the courage to tell his mom, you need to back off. And I told
Yeah.
him, I was like, you're going to lose her and you're never going to see her again. And I said, and I don't want to hear it if that happens. That's all it took. That's all it took was me to tell him that. It took a lot because they were calling me like almost every day. Multiple times I would get text messages and I was like, I'm not a marriage counselor. I said, but it's common knowledge. Let's just do this. And then it
And
was
sometimes it
you
is. Yeah.
yeah. I was like, you can't. I was like, you can't force her to do this and you can't force him to do this. I was like, maybe you need to separate for a little bit until you work it out. And they did, they separated, but then they came back and now they're stronger than ever. But I was like, you have to make the choice. I told him, it's like, I love you. You're my nephew. But I was like, I am on the side of your girlfriend right now because there's no way I would allow my mother to bash my husband. There's just no way. And that was what was happening is his mom was literally saying horrific things. And I was like, and you're allowing this to happen. I go, you're not standing up. You're not being a man. I was like, you're still attached to the boot. And he loved that. He didn't know what that meant until I told him that. And he's like, oh no, absolutely not.
And that's more common than what you think. Like, and it's not just men, it's women
Mm.
too that
Oh,
are,
yeah.
they're constantly comparing their husbands to their dad. Well, do I need to call my dad to come do that? Well, my dad does it this way. Well, my dad would give me money. Well, my dad would fill my car up with gas. Well, my dad loves me this way. Well, my dad loves my mom this way.
Mhm.
You can't do that. But men are the same way. And this is the
Yeah.
thing, is that we think that just because we're old enough to get married legally,
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
automatically equipped to be married.
Yeah.
And that's
Right.
Yeah.
not,
No.
maturity is not guaranteed with age.
Yep.
Maturity is something that you have to grow in, you have to learn, you have to actually become equipped to be in a relationship. And
Oh,
that's,
100%. 100%.
yeah, it's it's a big thing. And on the flip side to that too, if the woman, like you said, I would never allow my mother to bash my husband that way, or I would never
I
allow
didn't.
my
I
father. And
Yeah.
that's the thing, is that
Yeah.
we have to get out of that mindset that my natural family that I was born into is
Mhm.
still my immediate family. It's
Yeah.
not. When you
No.
choose to get married, that
Mhm.
is now your nuclear
Yep.
family, and your
Yep.
nuclear family you grew up with is now an extended family.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
if you
That's
don't
exactly
want to
what I told
spend
him.
Christmas morning on, with your parents, you don't have to. You
Yeah.
can do Christmas morning or whatever, like, you can do whatever holiday tradition you want.
Mhm.
So, yeah,
Yeah, like you said, though, comes it's
it
maturity, you
is. It's
gotta
a
have it up
maturity
there.
thing.
Just because you're
Yep.
old enough doesn't mean
You're
you're up
equipped.
there.
Yep.
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 What has been one of your biggest challenges when it comes to speaking with your clients and kind of like reviewing and listening to what they say to you and asking for your help? Like, do you have like a challenge that you remember that you knew it was really hard for you to kind of pick it up and understand it and help them?
It's not so much the content of what they tell me, because like we were talking about listening earlier. Most relationships, the nuances are all going to be different, of course, but the underlying root issues are all the same. They're all the same. The issues come, and the most challenging things for me to deal with are, and sadly, it's mostly women that do this with me, and this is just my practice that I've
Mhm.
experienced this, but it's mostly women that will say, they'll reach out and say, "We need help. We need help. Oh my God, we need so much help. This is what's going on, blah, blah, blah." Their husbands will be on board, and their husbands will actually rise to the occasion. Their husbands will actually be like, "Okay, yeah, I know I need to fix this now that you're
Mhm.
saying X, Y, and Z." And sometimes I'm saying the exact same things their wives have said 828 times, and their wives are looking at them like, "Are you freaking kidding me? We have had knockdown dragouts over this, and you're gonna
Mhm.
you're gonna accept her influence over mine? What the hell?" And so it's a thing, but what happens then is that it's the women that almost come to me with this expectation of, like, it's my partner. It's my husband. Just tell him that he sucks and that he needs to fix his life. And once
Jeez.
that happens, then we're going to be good. We're good.
Nope.
But then when I point out their flaws and I'm like, well,
Yeah.
Yep.
actually, sis, it takes two. And here are
Yeah.
the things that you need to work with. And then they're like, I'm not going to see her again. I'm not, I'm done with her.
Mhm.
And,
Okay. Yeah, I get it.
and the husband's sitting there going, I'm sorry, I've been in the hot seat for the last 6 months. And she says one thing to you and you're going to bail? Like, what is happening right now? So
Yeah.
yeah, it's that makes it really difficult for me to work with people.
Yeah. But you know
Yeah.
what? Obviously, from everything that you have told us and what you're speaking with your clients, they're not listening. They're not like this. Just for instance, this case that you just told us, that woman was didn't listen to really anything that you said.
That's
'Cause
true. That's
they don't
true.
wanna be held accountable. They want to be have the halo over their head and be the
Mhm.
innocent angel, and they want to point fingers. Like, the saying
Mhm.
is, you're pointing one finger at somebody, but you got 3 pointed right back at you.
That's it. That's what I tell
Yeah.
my clients too. And that's what's interesting, is that the hypocrisy, I actually did a podcast on my podcast not too long ago about hypocrisy, because the hypocrisy in marriages, and it was in ours too, like,
Mhm.
that's one of the things that we really had to get help with too, was the hypocrisy, because I didn't realize, I would get so mad at him for the fact that he yelled, or the fact that he cussed at me, or the fact, something like that. But I was getting emotionally big too. I
Mhm.
was, crying hysterically or slamming doors or whatever. And it's all the same. It's all the same. It
Yeah.
just,
Mhm.
it's all ice cream. It just looks like a different flavor, one's strawberry, one's mint pistachio or whatever. So, it's just, that's the hypocrisy is really big. But yeah, that's also a trait of an anxious preoccupied. If you have an
Mhm.
insecure attachment, anxious are so good at reading the books and being like, "Ooh, that's my husband. That's my husband. Ooh, he does that too."
Mhm.
And never looking at that and being like, "Oh, actually that's me. Ooh, ooh, yep." And it's a
Yeah.
lack of self-awareness, and that
Yeah.
self-awareness is a maturity thing too.
Yeah, for sure.
What would you say for somebody like maybe because obviously we know this happens a lot. Say, for example, there's one partner, a husband or wife could be have a really high education, like maybe PhD or they're a doctor or whatever, and the other person doesn't have that. Maybe, and again, there's nothing wrong with this. Like I have a friend who's a doctor and the other one is a real estate agent. So maybe obviously, you can sit there and say, well, the doctor's more smarter. And then it comes into the marriage where the person with the higher education basically looks down at their partner or kind of throws it in their face. Oh, you didn't go to school or you didn't do this. Have you ever had anybody come to you that's had that situation? And how would you tell them to handle it?
I have actually,
Oh, wow.
I've worked with a lot of couples that are like that actually.
Okay.
And what it comes down to, so Dr. Gottman calls it the four horsemen of the apocalypse.
Okay.
And so running from like the least effective to the most effective when it comes
Hmm.
to divorce. So, or like the most impactful or the least impactful, the least is criticism.
Yeah.
Women, we grew up with criticism our whole lives. You're not smart enough. You're not pretty enough. You're
Yep.
not thin enough. You need to lose weight. You need to look a certain way. Ooh, you're 45 and you've got wrinkles. What is wrong with you? So we're constantly getting criticized. We can handle that.
Yeah.
Men can't. Men cannot handle criticism at all. So then the next one is contempt. And that's exactly what you're talking about. And that's
Hmm.
where we shut down as women is we can handle criticism all day long. But the minute you think you're better than me, that's where I'm out of the conversation. I can't handle it.
Yeah.
And
I
so,
100% will walk. I'm like, I just
yeah,
shut down.
yep.
I'm like, "Hmm?
All right. I don't need you in my life then. Peace out, Girl
Yeah.
Scout.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how that works. When you have contempt, contempt is actually one of the most dangerous because of the fact that you really can't come back from that. Because that
Hmm.
mindset is so deeply ingrained that you think you're better than me, then why are you married to me? But it also can be projected that your partner doesn't really have that contempt, but because of what you believe as one of those self beliefs that we talked about earlier that lead to then the filters that you have on life, if
Yeah.
you believe you're not good enough, maybe you grew up being told you weren't good enough. Maybe you
Yeah.
grew up being told, well, you have to be a doctor, or you have to be a lawyer, or you have to be a certain, here's the standard, but the job or the career or the life calling that you have
Hmm.
doesn't meet that standard in your parents' eyes, but it
Yeah.
does make you feel fulfilled. Then again, you haven't quite cut that apron string. And so you're still vying for the pride of your parents. And then it goes into your
Exactly.
marriage because you're thinking, well, if my mom believes that, then you have to believe that too. And that's not necessarily true. So then the other two are defensiveness, which, obviously when you feel like your partner feels like
Hmm.
they're better than you, you're going to get defensive.
Right.
And then stonewall. So we shut down emotionally or physically in a conversation because we don't feel it. We feel hopeless. We don't feel like it's going to go anywhere. And then
Yeah.
that leads to the silent treatment or what have you. So those are the four horsemen, but contempt is one of the most dangerous because of that. It's a mindset that you have that is either true, it's something that
Hmm.
your partner feels and how they act, or it's from you. So that's where you have to start. You have to decide, okay, is this mine or is this actually something that they believe? And that
Okay.
doesn't happen without a conversation and
True.
self-awareness.
Do you think a lot of that has to do, like, with generation? Like, any type of generational thing? Like, you were saying before how, us as women have been told, you can't because of X amount of reasons, okay?
Hmm.
And then we kinda get into, like, a different level of parenting people that maybe we didn't like that we were told that we were, not pretty enough or not smart enough, so now we don't wanna do it to this generation, and so on and so forth. Like, you kinda get, like, that ebb and flow type of thing.
I think it's always this is a really good question. I think that it is not necessarily generational because I mean if we think back to like our grandparents or our great grandparents,
Right.
I think that that was always there. I think it was, are you graceful enough? Do you, are you smart enough? Do you have an education through 8th grade, or did you have to stop in 4th grade because
Mhm.
your mom needed you at home? Something
Yeah.
like that. I think the difference is that now we live in an age where we have the internet, where we have, television, where we have all these streaming devices and shows like Love is Blind and Temptation Island and all these things that we're comparing ourselves to, and it's just more prevalent. And so now we actually, I was actually just talking to my mom about this yesterday, where when we were growing up in the 80s and 90s, the only book that was really there on parenting that was really available was from Dr. Spock, and he was a quack. So
Yes.
everybody was like, well, we're not doing that. You know what I
Right,
mean? So it was like,
right.
Uh-huh.
okay, but I don't have any other options. So I'm just going to do the best with what I've got and move on. But now we have options. We have people like coaches and therapists and counselors, and everybody's specialized, and a million bajillion books on parenting and attachment styles and how to not screw up your kid and all these things.
Right.
And so I think that there's just an awareness now that they didn't have back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just mentioned that stuff like Love Island and stuff like that. Is that more of an unrealistic model for people to
It's
view?
completely unrealistic and absolutely the most toxic thing in the world.
Yeah.
But also, like, I mean, have you seen every Love is Blind in every country? Because I have. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's trash TV. Like, of course you're gonna watch it because it's like a train wreck. You can't not.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and then in your head,
Reality
you're
TV
trying to
show is
compare.
like there.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
It's like the young girls comparing themselves to all the supermodels and the
Yeah,
actors, and I'm like,
yeah,
some of that is not healthy. Being that tiny is not healthy. When I can count your ribs right here in your chest, that is
yeah.
to me. And again, some people are built that way, and that's just how their body is. But if your body isn't built that way, you shouldn't be. It's not healthy. You got to be on top of that with the kids. That's very scary.
But that's cyclical too. Do you remember
Mhm,
back in the early 90s when that was like being that thin was
mhm.
so in, and then it went to like, no, you
Yes.
have to have, positive body image and all of this stuff. And then so women are like walking down the runway as a size 8 versus a size 0. And now we're
Mhm.
back to the, okay, well, now that with GLP-1s are in and all of that, it's like, oh, let's get back down to
We're back
bone
to the
thin.
ebbs and
Yep.
flows of
And then
life.
Yeah.
that I absolutely think ebbs and flows for
Mhm.
sure. It's
I
just like
was.
clothes,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
like what
That's
was
what I
in style
tell
at
my
once
girls.
is now in style again. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and relationships aren't any different.
No. I
no.
tell my girls that don't look at the number on the scale. Go by what size your pants you wear. So if you want to be maybe a size 10, okay, so Jennifer down the road might be, 5'9", and she might be 150 pounds, but she's putting herself in a size 8. Whereas it's everybody's different. That's what I tell my kids. I'm like, just don't look at the number on the scale. That is very dangerous.
It is, and I would even go a step further and say, like, if your blood work is healthy, I mean, I'm a bigger girl, but at the same time, my blood work is supreme.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, mine too.
I'm
Yeah.
super healthy, and I eat very healthy. I don't eat sugar, I don't drink caffeine, I don't drink alcohol, like all the things, but I'm bigger. So, and I've always been that way since I was 4 years old. So, if you're doctors, and not that I put a lot of trust and hope in Western medicine, but if you're not being told, oh, you have diabetes, or you are, very high risk for heart attack or something like that, like, just be happy with where you're at. Don't be trying
Right.
to compare yourself. The comparison jealousy is what is really, really detrimental, not only to yourself, but also to your relationships.
Yes. Yes. I
Mhm.
was just going to
Yep.
ask about that.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, she lives in Georgia, and she never went to college, but she started a business from the ground up. And she's now making, I think, like 6 figures. She's got several employees. And her husband is an amazing man. I love him. They live in a small town. He's a paramedic, he's an EMT, he's the mortician, he's the dialysis driver. And when she started making all this money more than him, he got a little upset because he's like, I'm the husband. I'm supposed to be bringing in more money. And she looked at him one day and she said, you helped me get here. This is our money. She says, I wouldn't have been able to do this without you. But she had to tell him that because he, in his mind, is, I'm supposed to be, bringing in the money. So obviously money is a huge factor when it comes to relationships. And I know men always think they're supposed to bring in more money than their wives because otherwise to them look like a failure when in reality they're not. It's just their significant other was just blessed to be able to do that. Is that something that you see a lot in your practice?
I do. Money means something different to everybody. So there's 4 different things that money can mean. Sometimes it means freedom,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it means security,
Yep.
sometimes it means power, and sometimes it means respect. So depending on what money, and again, what it means to a man may not be the
Yeah.
same as what it means to a woman.
Right.
At the
Exactly.
same time, there's an identity there that
Okay.
as a man, this is my job. I am the protector, I am the provider. That goes back to biblical times. So as a protector and provider, I am the one that is supposed to do this. At the same time, protection and provision don't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily mean monetary.
Okay.
Protection and provision mean, did you lock the door before we
Right.
went to bed? Did you, are you protecting my heart? Are you making
Yeah.
sure that you are living with integrity so that I don't wake up one day and find some rando in my Instagram DM saying, I slept with your husband and it's taken me 5 years to find you. Like that kind of thing. That happened to me,
Right.
by the way. That
Yeah.
was my story.
Oh
So
no.
yeah, no
Sorry.
joke. But that is,
Mm-hmm.
are you protecting my heart? Are you
Mm-hmm.
providing for our family in that, there's a lot of stay-at-home dads now. And
Yes.
that's
Yes.
okay. Like
Yeah.
that's actually, I interviewed not too long ago. She is a therapist that has worked primarily with preschool boys because they are more distressful. They're more distressing to teachers. And so like looking at emotions and all the things from then until they grow into adults, we actually find that kids who stay home with dads
Mm-hmm.
are actually more emotionally equipped than those who stay at home with moms. Because dads are more
Interesting.
present when they are stay at home dads. They're more present with the kids. They're
Mm-hmm.
on the floor playing. Whereas moms are like, just a minute, baby, let me finish these dishes. Just a minute, baby, let me
Right.
finish this laundry. Just a minute,
Yeah.
well, we're not going to go to the park today because we got to go to the grocery store. So
Yeah.
we're taking our kids with us
Mm-hmm.
where the dads are saying, no, that can wait. Let me be with my kid.
Right.
So there's actually healthier
Interesting.
dynamics there. So yeah, I mean, but going back to your question, yes, I do see it a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
it comes down to what have you created an identity in? And
Uh,
also how often do you meet a woman and
mm-hmm.
you're like, well, tell me about yourself. Well, I'm a wife and I'm a mom and
Yep.
I'm a this and I'm a that and this is what I do. How often do you see a dad? He starts with his career. Well, I'm a pilot and that's it.
Yep.
There's so many times where my husband has come home and I'm like, oh, did you like the pilot that you flew with this week? Yeah, he was amazing. Oh my gosh, like they've got so many investment accounts and they own so many properties and he's done this and that and the third and blah blah blah. Is he married? I don't know. Does he have kids? I don't know. Where do they live? I don't know. What did you talk about for 5 days? Like what
Right.
is happening?
Right.
And he's like,
Right.
well, I know all about his business ventures. I know all about,
You're like,
I know
okay.
all about his
Yeah.
investments. I know how many hours he's had in the pilot. I know how many, airplanes he's flown or,
Mm-hmm.
countries he's been to. Okay. Like, you see what I'm saying? So the identity is completely different.
I was going to say, I think that's part of the difference between a man and a woman is that we are more into getting down to the nitty gritty and we want to know all the details
Mm-hmm.
where
Yeah.
men are more, we're good.
Surface level.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
Surface
sure.
level. And what can I learn from you?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it. That's
Yeah.
it. Why don't you tell us a little about your podcast and give it a plug and all that other fun stuff?
Yeah. So Married and Connected drops every Monday.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, we talk about all things marriage on there. Things to, hypocrisy and emotional safety. And I interview guests as well, therapists and, authors and all the different, people that can help you with your marriage. So there's that. You can find me there. You can find me on Instagram at married.and.connected. Let's see. I'm on Substack. So I have a Substack article that comes out every Thursday that also has marriage advice and tips in there. And then the school community. I have the SKOOL school.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
fairly new, so not a lot of people know about it, but I do have a free community there where you can purchase courses, but there's a lot of free workshops and like a weekly check-in that you can get that you can print off and help with the organization of your marriage and your life there. There's tons of date night stuff and connection stuff. And I mean, just all kinds of things that you can learn for free.
That's wonderful.
So, what is one key advice you would give to a couple who are engaged and they're about to get married? What is one key advice you would give them?
You are spending a buttload of money
Mhm,
on a day that you're going to remember for the rest of your life.
mhm,
And I promise you, you are going to wake up the next day after the night of your wedding, and
mhm.
it's going to be, what now? You need to invest money in some kind of premarital coaching or counseling, and
Okay.
not from your pastor that you go in and fill out a survey and your pastor says, yep, looks good. See you at the altar. That's not gonna fly. You
Right.
need to become equipped to be in a marriage. And right
Okay.
now, if you have not had any kind of therapy, counseling, coaching, any of that, you are not equipped, my friend. I promise you.
Sure.
You just reminded me is I heard an interview once that Pink did, the singer Pink. She
But yeah,
said
I love
she
her.
and her husband, Carrie Hart, literally go to weekly counseling, marriage therapy. And she goes, because everybody's like, how have you made it this far? And she's like, oh, we go to therapy. She's like, it's very therapeutic. We go once a week.
Yep.
Yeah.
I have
I mean,
couples that I worked with 5, 6, 7 years ago, and they'll
Hmm.
still every 3 months ago be like, we just need a maintenance session, and they'll book a session. And sometimes it's just like, what's going on with your life? Sometimes it's okay, but remember,
Hmm.
you're not utilizing the tools that you actually learned 7 years ago. And they're like, oh, yep, yep, we need to get back to that.
Yeah.
need a
So
refresher.
sometimes it's just a refresher, and sometimes it's like oh, we have a problem, or we have, aging parents that we don't know how to
Yeah.
deal with this, and we didn't go through that in coaching or something like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I highly advocate for that.
Gotcha.
It all circles back to the fact that just because you get married or just because you have aging parents or just because you have kids doesn't mean that you're equipped.
No, it doesn't. And this is the thing too. I compare marriage a lot to a foreign language. Like if you're learning a foreign language, you're not just going to pick up a book and be like, "Oh, I know exactly how to pronounce these words." No, you're going to need someone who speaks that language, who
Hmm.
knows about that language, who's lived in that culture. And then if you don't use that language for 5, 6, 7 years and you just kind of live on autopilot as we
Yeah.
do, you're going to lose it. And so then
Yeah.
you're going to be in the middle of a situation someday where you're going to need to remember the French word for cheese and you're not going to be able to remember it. So you've got to actually use it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one more question.
Sure.
Because you said that you were married once before and now you've gotten remarried. What advice would you give to somebody who has been married, have children from first marriage, and they're going into a second marriage? Maybe they're, bringing children in from both sides, or maybe he has children only, or she's got children only, whatever it is. How would you walk somebody through that? Because it's obviously a very delicate situation because you're bringing
Yeah.
in a change for children no matter what their age is. What advice or how would you talk to somebody about that?
I'm going to hold both hands and your feet when I tell these listeners this. Just because you were married before and you're like,
Mhm.
well, I know what went wrong, do not think for 1 second that you can get married again and think that you can do it on your own. You have to have support. And the reason is, one, especially if you haven't worked through what didn't go well in that first marriage, not going to
Yeah.
work. Secondly, you've got kids. And so we come in, and one of the biggest problems, whether you're married for the first time, second time, 10th time, doesn't matter, expectations.
Mhm.
Expectations are premeditated resentments. So when you come in thinking, "Oh, we're going to blend well, the kids get along great," your kids get along great for 2 hours on a Saturday afternoon at the park. That's a completely different scenario than when you're all sitting around a dinner table and
Yep.
you've got two that don't like spaghetti and one that loves it and another one that's like, well, I like spaghetti, but not your spaghetti. So it's a completely different scenario. You're also not going to get the alone time with your partner that you
Yeah.
did before you had kids. So, or in your
Mhm.
first marriage, because maybe the weeks that you have kids don't line up with the weeks he has kids, or
Got
vice versa. So you're either always have kids, or you've got all the kids and it's complete chaos and a circus, or you
Mhm.
have no kids. So
Yeah.
like there's just so much. And I recently interviewed Dr. Dina Thayer from Focus on the Family for
Okay.
my podcast. And what she said, this was absolutely brilliant and heartbreaking at the same time, is that you have to remember that your second marriage, especially if it's coming with kids, your second marriage came with loss. So there is a
Yeah.
grief there. And when
Yep.
you get married on the day of your wedding, that's like the nail in the coffin for your kids. So
Yeah.
don't be surprised if they're also sad and depressed on a day that you are super happy with, because that is like the final dream that they had of their parents ever getting back
Yeah.
together is now dead,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
That
killed it.
True.
is that is so true. I'm glad that you said that because a friend of mine, her parents had divorced and her dad had gotten remarried until he got sick and passed away. Well, then her stepmom turned around and got remarried back to her first husband.
Mm,
And the children that she had from her first husband said, I've always dreamed about my parents getting, back together and getting remarried. And I was like, that's great, but what about your stepsister that doesn't get to have that because her father passed away? So it's yeah, and it hurt my friend. My friend was devastated when it ruined that social media post ruined that family. Like there is no fixing that because of what she said. And I was like, I saw that. I was like, oh my gosh. I'm like, I wouldn't even no.
You
Yeah,
guys
like
wanna
you
hear a
said.
wild statistic?
yes.
What?
35 of marriages that get divorced
Mhm.
will get remarried.
Wow.
70% of
Okay.
marriages that get divorced will regret it for whoever filed will regret
Yeah.
it for the rest of their life. Because
Wow.
even
That's
when
a
they
large.
find someone new, it's that grass is greener on the other side. They think that marriage is gonna be better, and then
Mhm.
they married to this person, and it's always a constant comparison in their brain of like, "Okay, but if I would have done this, then maybe she would have done that. Or if I would have done this, he would have done that. Or he does this better than my current husband, or she does this better than my current wife." So it's just constantly my grandfather is a perfect example of that, that
Okay.
he cheated on my grandmother, got married to my step grandmother. They were
Mhm.
married like 35 years or more. And then she died. And it wasn't until he was literally on his deathbed. And he told my mom, I never should have divorced your mom. I never should have. And so we're talking 40 years that
Wow.
he took that regret, and that regret and that guilt and that shame, that is what creates disease.
Wow.
Wow. That's sad.
Yeah,
I
it
didn't
is.
realize statistics was like that
So
35%.
high.
Wow.
I know. I didn't realize it
That's
either, and I was reading
70%.
studies of that. I'm like, "Man."
I guess I just never really thought about that. I mean, for me, when someone says they're getting a divorce, I'm not going in. So tell me what happened. Why? I'm like, that
Yeah,
to me is just like,
yeah,
that's not my business. I mean, I
yeah.
just like, you do your thing. I'm sorry that your marriage broke or whatever happened, but I never thought about that before.
Mhm.
I
Well,
mean,
it
I
just
love
comes
it when
down
I
to the
see,
fact that you can make a relationship work with, you can go outside and throw a rock and hit somebody and be like, "Okay, that's who I'm choosing." And it comes down to
right.
choice every single day.
Yeah.
As long as you're waking up with your partner saying, "You know what? Maybe life sucks. Maybe
Uh-huh.
this is not what I hoped at all. And also, I still choose you. I'm
Yeah.
choosing to make it work with you."
Yeah.
Love is a choice.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it really is. A friend of mine, she used to work at I'm in Maryland, so she used to work at the Montgomery County Courthouse. And she said it was always because she worked in the filing, divorce court or something like that. She always knew, she goes, it was 5 years, 10 years, I want to say, and the 20-year mark. She always said those were the 3 years that were the most common, or three dates that were the most common for people getting divorced. And I was like, why? And she says, because it's the hardest. And this was when I was like newly married. And then when I hit the 5-year mark, yep, he's pissing me off. And then it was this one, I'm like, yep. And I always remember what she said because I'm at the 20-year mark now. He pisses me off all the time, but I still love him. I'm not leaving him. But it's like, yeah, I'm like, but you have to work through it. You don't have to talk to him today or tomorrow, but then you gotta make it work. You can't just throw it away and pretend like it didn't exist because it's gonna be there. But I always remember what she said.
I can never understand people that get divorced like after 38 years, 40 years, 45 years. I could never understand that because you have literally circled your life around this person for 40 years and you're just going to leave. Like it doesn't resonate with me.
Yeah.
So here's what that is actually. So marriage has a half-life. So you know how Okay, so, like, if you drink coffee in the morning, right, and about 9 hours later, you kinda hit a wall and you're like, "Okay, I either need to go to bed or whatever." Okay, so marriage is the exact same way. Marriage has a half-life. So, for the 40, we've been married for 40 years, their marriage has been struggling for the last 20, and those are the people that's like, "Okay, well, I'm just gonna stick it out for the kids. I'm just gonna we'll just get past
Yeah.
it. We'll just get through it. We'll just get through it." They've basically just settled and suffered for 20 years instead of sitting down and being like, "Listen, this is not working for me. And here are the things that are not working. And here's what we need to do to fix it." And maybe they've had that conversation, but their partner is like, "Well, that's your problem. If it's not working for you, then that's
Yeah.
fine because it's working for
Right.
me just fine." Even though
Yeah.
they're like surface level is fine for them, whereas their partner wants to go deep. So completely different. But that 5 year mark, their marriage has sucked basically for the last 2.5. 10 years, the last 5 has been struggle.
Mhm.
20
Right.
years, 10 years, like same thing. So
Wow.
but this is the thing that people do not realize is that, okay, we're old enough to get married, we're getting married, and we're just gonna do life parallel, right? It's
Mhm.
not it's not the idea that you're building something together as a team,
Mhm.
and is it a win-win? It has to be a win-win for both of you. And so again, going back to what we talked about in the beginning of the episode of the selfishness. You have to
Yep.
be willing to get over yourself and be others focused. So that's what's happening is that in these marriages where they're getting a divorce after 20 years, it's because for the last 10 they're just not being intentional about it. And marriage is an absolutely living, breathing thing that you have to water and nurture and grow
Yep.
every
Sure.
single day.
Yep,
Wow.
absolutely.
Very informative. I'm
Yeah.
actually,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
I
love
mean,
this, Cameron. We could really, like, talk for hours. You're such a pleasure.
Well, thank you.
yeah, I honestly, because I mean, I just think of people when you tell me things, I'm like, oh, yeah, I saw that this person here, I saw that person here. Now that you say all this stuff, I see it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, then. I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, I
It's
see it.
wild when you finally like when it comes to you and you finally like start to get that self-awareness and you start
Yeah,
to get like the awareness of what it is, like hypocrisy. You don't ever think about a marriage having hypocrisy in it.
no,
And then when you finally learn about it and you're like, "Oh, now I can't unsee it." And
yep,
so, you know what I mean? Like,
yep.
yeah, it's crazy.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for coming on again. I have loved every ounce of this. I
Thanks
always,
Yes,
for having me.
yes.
yes,
Thank you
I
for
mean,
reaching out. We really appreciate it.
think yes, yes. I mean, it's like I'm always like wanting to ask people questions. I'm like, nope, not gonna do it. Nope, because I always go, it's not my business. But you just talking to you and hearing your side of things and giving us all this information has literally probably answered 1,000 questions in my brain that I just see randomly with people that I know or that I have known. And I'm like, that's what they went through. I'm like, okay,
Yep.
you've
Yep.
yeah,
And it
yeah.
makes so much sense once
It
you realize
does.
what they go through. You're like, you have a lot more empathy for them
I
because you're
do.
like, man, if I would have had the exact same experiences, exposure, and education than you have, I probably would have made the same decision.
Yep.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
yeah, there's so much less judgment when you understand it. So
yes, I think I have yeah, I have one friend. She and her husband were high school sweethearts. They got divorced and they have now both remarried. They're like the best of friends. They're those people that you see on social media that go camping together, go on vacations together. The husbands are best friends, the wives are best friend, the kids are like this, and they live literally down the road from each other. That is, I know, very rare. But yeah, I mean,
it does happen.
I mean, I'm glad that they got married because I love their kids. Their kids are amazing, but then you put the 4 together and you're just like you're in your mind, you're like, "You're not supposed to be friends. You're not supposed to
Yeah.
be hanging out, having barbecues, and no, this is not supposed to happen. You're not supposed to be taking your ex-husband's new children," but they do, and I love it. I love it for it's a ha I think honestly, they're in a much more healthier relationship now than they were, but they got married because they were obviously young and what they thought they were in love and had children,
Uh-huh.
and obviously
Uh-huh.
it didn't work out, but, I mean, that is very rare, I know, but yeah.
We have a similar situation. Nate, my first husband, and I,
Mhm.
we get along great now.
Yeah.
Like I'm still friends with his family. He was up here not too long ago. Our son, so our
Mhm.
oldest is
Yeah.
from my first marriage, and Mason had a couple of like awards assemblies and stuff at the end of the school year,
Right.
and my youngest that I have with my husband now, he's sitting on Nate's lap, and they're during the
Aw.
assembly, Nate's just as bored as Zane is. And
Yeah.
so they're both like, he's like, what you got in that backpack? Like, what do you got to play with? And I'm like, I have magna tiles. Do you want those? And he's like, yeah, bring those out. So he's like building castles and stuff with my 5-year-old. That's not his kid. I've
Right.
sent clothes and like, he has
Yeah.
a 3-year-old and an 8-month-old with his wife now. And like I mean, it's like nothing. Like it's completely normal for me to just, Lena will get on the phone and talk to me. And so
I love that.
it is,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
great.
I
That's
don't know that
great.
we would go camping together or, like, anything like that, but
It takes a strong person, I think, to be able
it
to have
does.
those type of relationships.
It takes a lot of things. That's, like, a very complex situation to break down, but, yeah, I think it takes a lot and a time and healing for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Our husband, my first and second husbands are absolutely not best friends, like, I don't know that they
Right.
would even consider themselves friends at all, but there's a dynamic there that we get along and it works. So we
It's called being
co-parent well.
cordial for the children.
That's right. We co-parent well and it works and
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Yeah. I always say just do it for the kids. Just do
Yeah.
it for the kids, but don't pretend, don't mask it because I always say kids are smarter than you think. So
Well,
if
they
you
pick
think
up
that
on your
you're
energy so bad, like
right.
Yeah.
so quick. And that's the
Yes.
thing. Like when me and Mo were divorced and separated, like I couldn't sugarcoat it. Like
Hmm.
I was very much in pain and my kids knew that.
Yeah.
And my kids
Yeah.
knew, how much I miss their dad and how much I love him and all of that. And it was hard. It was really, really hard.
No.
So sad, but you know what? As
Yeah.
long as I guess you can make it work and, I always say do it for the kids,
Yep.
They're the most
Yep.
important I always say they're the most important thing when it comes I mean, obviously your significant other is very important to keep the marriage going, but when you bring kids in, that like
It's a
you
whole
need
nother
to
ball
it's
game.
a
Yep.
whole nother ball game. So but thank you so much
Yeah, thank you
for
again. We
coming
really, really
on and
appreciate it.
spending time with us and
I
right,
appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so
thank you
much
so
again.
much for coming on. We truly, truly appreciate it.